When I was young, I had a friend who had a chandelier in their dining room, and my younger self saw this as a measure of wealth and something to aspire to. Chandeliers have historically been symbols of luxury, status, and elegance, so of course, I wanted one. Fast forward a few decades later, and my measure of wealth has greatly shifted. Wealth to me is no longer about owning things or status, it's finding joy and peace in nature, growing your own food and giving back to the earth, and finding value in recycling old things and giving them a new life. I've learned it brings me way more joy than things or status ever could. Wealth to me is in my garden. And hey, it even now has a chandelier, and it only cost me $20. Hello everyone and welcome back to the garden. Today I wanted to share what I'm doing to create a colourful and eclectic garden space from mostly recycled materials. And of course, I was so excited to pick up this chandelier from the markets. I knew straight away where I wanted to put it. It was all fallen apart, so it needed some rewiring, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm constantly on the lookout for different objects at markets and thrift shops that might fit well into my garden, and I love the challenge of looking for a good bargain. Something else I do to create an interesting garden is paint. Everything. I initially started out painting some garden beds a purple color, and I really liked it and kind of got hooked. I then went to the shops and picked out a palette I liked and then went from there. And I don't know how extreme I'll go in the end, but for now I'm loving how it looks. Maybe this is extreme to some people, but I'm currently in the process of painting all my pots. When I first started gardening, I just really didn't like the look of all the black plastic pots, and I only wanted to have nice terracotta or ceramic pots. But when I discovered how much those things are, I quickly changed my mind. Like, even secondhand, they're pricey. I quickly gave up on that idea and decided to start painting all the black plastic pots I own. These are a lot easier to source, and you can get them really cheap from tip shops or nurseries, and sometimes you can get them free. And pots are great if you don't have a lot of space, especially great for trees. It's surprising how many trees you can grow in pots. And pots are also great for plants that like certain soils, like blueberries. I highly recommend checking the mist tint bay at your local hardware store, but this is a great way to get cheap paint. I also pick up cheap paint from markets or tip shops as well. It's very surprising what you can find. I try and stick within my palette to an extent, but if a color isn't quite right, you can dilute it down with white paint. So this can make it a more pastel color, and it also lasts a lot longer as well. I always try and pick up the outdoor paint, but I do want to experiment with ways to use indoor paint outdoor somehow, because I have a lot of indoor paint I would like to use. So maybe with some sort of marine varnish, but let me know if you've got any tips for that. I do get asked a lot if the paint is food safe for growing in. And to be honest, it's at your own risk. I couldn't find a definitive answer about it, but I always think the plants aren't touching the paint, so it's got to be safe to some extent. But I kind of figure the pesticides they spray on chemically grown food is probably way worse for me anyways. But if you are concerned, you can always just paint the outside of the beds of the pot. The paint does make wood last a lot longer though, so there are some extra benefits. And I think some of the stuff they treat wood with is probably more dangerous than paint anyway. So it's at your own risk, but I'm personally happy to take it. One of the jobs I've been wanting to do for ages is paint my potting up table. I absolutely love this thing and have owned it for years. I think I stole it off my mum, who's also a collector of knickknacks like me, and the green was just not matching the vibe of the garden, so it was time for a makeover. When painting metal, it's best to use a Rust-Oleum or a metal specific paint. I just opt for the spray cans, and they have the primer built into them. Sadly, a can doesn't go too far though, and you can get drips on it if you're not careful, but it's just for fun and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm so happy with how this turned out. Definitely brightens up the dark area of the potting shed so well, and just mixes in with the vibe of the garden. But now it's time for decorating. If you want to add some cheap, fun pots to your garden, repurposing old objects like teapots is a super fun way to do that. You just have to make sure you use the right drill bit to drill a drainage hole in the bottom so it doesn't get waterlogged. You can also experiment with just putting stones in the bottom. It still may get a bit waterlogged. I've also been using double-sided sticky tape on some of my pots because there is a possum that stops by at night and is very clumsy and has a habit of knocking off all my favorite pots. I absolutely love this cursed baby doll head pot, and I would be devastated if it was smashed. In my potting up shed, I also repurpose old items like this clothes hamper. This is where I store all my pots, so it's a bit more hidden away. I also picked up this little hanger. It's probably for keys or something, but I'm going to use it for hanging garden tools. I've also been adding like pink ribbon and things to my tools because I'm very prone to putting them down and then not being able to find them, so hopefully this will help. I've also been collecting some really nice insect ornaments, but I've been struggling to know how to use them. I've been really wanting to attach them to my shed, but I kind of don't know how. So I very badly tried to use some fishing lines to connect them to the gutter. And I don't know if this will last, but for now it gives me an idea to see whether I like it or not. If I do, I'll try a proper way to secure it, but for now it looks pretty cool. The other really cool thrift shop find recently was these old lights, and they're only $10 each, and they're no longer functioning, but I wanted to use them in the garden somehow. I was able to unscrew and take the top off, and I wanted to add some sort of solar light. I did have some unused fairy lights, and I put them in hopes it'll have a really nice effect. I then had to find a spot for them and a way to attach them. I used some wire to tightly tie them around the light and secure it to the fence, and this actually worked pretty well, and you can't really see the wire, which is good. I also added the second one to my potting up area right near my flowering mandevilla, and I'm so happy with how this turned out. I haven't been able to capture them at night, but they look pretty nice. A few other things I've done around the place is using old chain as like a trellis for my grape. I picked up a box of really cool old chains at a garage sale, and I've been trying to use them around the garden. But that pretty much sums up what kind of things I've been doing in my garden lately to make it look extra special. I'm loving how my garden looks and how it's constantly evolving, and I encourage you to try some things at home to make gardening extra fun and creative, because I think it just helps so much, and it encourages me to use recycled items and makes me just love my garden even more. So thanks so much for watching this video. I've been a little bit busy with work lately, so I haven't uploaded much, but I am off to Japan this week, so if you'd like to see some travel snaps, then make sure to follow my Instagram. But otherwise, I'll see you next time when I return to the garden, and might do a bit of a garden tour, but otherwise let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.